Man takes advantage of his wife's absence to put on her sexy lingerie and look in the mirror. But just then the wife suddenly returned home. She didn't get angry when she saw this scene, but also took out a box of just bought stockings for her husband to change. And this action will change the man completely. The man couldn't wait to put on the stockings. Then he squeezed his size 45 feet into his satin shoes. It was the first time Einar wore women's clothing, and he never took it off the day he died. Einar and his wife CIA were both painters. But in contrast to his husband's fame, his wife remained unappreciated. In order to help his wife find inspiration, Einar offered to be her mannequin. But when he put on the women's clothing, he was instantly immersed in it. His wife is still unaware of this. At night, Einar caressed his wife's new lingerie, his eyes full of desire. He begs his wife to lend it to him for one night. But his wife thought he was joking. Until the next day when she unzips her husband's shirt. She found that he had secretly put his own underwear inside. But the husband said it was to inspire her. The wife took out her drawing board and drew her husband's beautiful side. At this time, the two did not realize the seriousness of the situation. The wife even thought that her husband looked good in female clothes. She began to experiment with her husband's female makeup. To make Einar more like a woman, his wife took him to the street and made him learn to walk like a woman. Observe the behavior of other women. Under her tutelage, Einar became more and more like a woman. Sia was very satisfied with her results. On this day she asked her husband to go to the ball with her as her best friend. At first, Einar was a little uncomfortable. Because all the men in the room were staring at her, they had never seen such a beautiful woman before. The wife left him alone so as not to disturb Einar. Immediately, Einar sat down in the corner. As soon as he sat down, a man came up to him. Einar got up and left, but he was followed by the other man. After some conversation, Einar found the man in front of him very attractive. In the other side of the compliments, he gradually lost himself. Surprisingly, he closed his eyes and accepted the other party's kiss. And this scene was caught by the wife who came to see. Only now did she realize that something was wrong with her husband. The next day Einar concentrated on his painting as if nothing had happened. The wife went up to him and warned him. She felt that the game should not continue. But Einar couldn't help himself. He went to the women's clothing store without his wife's knowledge. He took off his suit and looked at himself in the mirror. At that moment, he felt like a woman. Then he dressed up and went on a date with the man at the party. Just as the man is about to take the next step, Einar suddenly remembered his wife at home. He tried to restrain his desire and left the man's house. Looking at the reflection of the woman on the glass, Einar feels guilty. He doesn't realize that things have reached a point of no return. Sia came home from work to find her husband dressed in women's clothes again. Even more outrageous was the fact that her husband had gone on a date with a man. Not wanting to hide this, Einar told his wife that he wanted to be a woman. He didn't feel like a man even if he was wearing a suit again. His wife had to take him to the doctor. The doctor said he had an endocrine disorder and had to schedule an operation. He strapped Einar to the operating table. Einar tried desperately to explain that he was fine. But his wife only believed the doctor's words. As the doctor pushed a button, a laser began to sweep through Einar's body. But the operation didn't change anything. Everyone thought Einar was crazy, except for his wife, who was by his side at all times. But just then the studio informed her. The painting she painted for her husband was bought at a high price. The art gallery in Paris invited her to attend. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and she had to go. She begs her husband to accompany her and intends to use this opportunity to untie his heart. But after arriving in Paris, Einar's condition did not improve. Instead, he became very withdrawn. It was unbelievable to everyone that the once great painter had become like this. It wasn't until someone complimented the beauty of the woman on the painting that Einar's face broke into a smile. When he changed into men's clothes, Einar had no interest in anything. His wife asked him to work with her. As a result, Einar left without a backward glance. He went to the red light district and paid a lot of money for a girl's time. But he doesn't do anything but watch the other woman's every move as she learns. But the masculine features on his body always reminded him that he was not a real woman. This disgusts him to no end. Seeing that her husband was falling deeper and deeper, his wife approached Einar's childhood friend. She asks him to help her untie Einar's heart. But when his wife brought the man home, Einar put on women's clothes again. And he lied to him that he was his wife's best friend. He looked at the man in front of him with love in his eyes. But when he turned his head and saw his wife, he immediately got up and went to the room. He did not want to hurt his wife, but desperate to be a woman. His wife reassured him that she would not leave no matter what. From then on, Einar was more reckless. He no longer held back from his wife. She was calm on the outside, but she didn't know what to do on the inside. He still loved Einar, but Einar had become Lily. Until that day, his wife couldn't stand it anymore. At his wife's pleading, Einar wiped off his makeup and changed into his long-lost boy's clothes. But his behavior has completely changed into a woman. The wife knew that her husband, Einar, was no longer coming back. Einar did not want his wife to live in disappointment every day. He went to the library to look for information to find out the secret hidden in his body. He accidentally reads about an operation that can turn a man into a woman. Einar rushed home immediately to tell his wife the good news. But on the way home, an accident happened. Einar was molested by other men because he was too beautiful. They came up to chase him. Einar didn't want to take it, but they knocked him to the ground. He tried to resist, but now, except for his manly appearance, Einar had become a woman. He could only let the two animals punch and kick him. Covered in wounds, Einar did not dare to go home and could only find his childhood friend to ask him to help with. Childhood friends sympathize with Einar's plight, so they take him back to the doctor. But none of the doctors could do anything about it. Either they said he was gay or mentally ill. But Einar knew in his heart that he was nothing. He just simply wanted to be a woman. His wife saw how Einar was being tortured. She regretted that she had hurt her husband. But Einar didn't think so. He said to his wife, "You brought Lily back to life." His wife decided to take Einar to try again. They went to London to find the most famous surgeon. Einar said, "I believe there is a woman inside me." The wife says, "I believe in him." Einar smiled, and his wife finally began to understand him. The doctor tells Einar that he has a way to turn him into a woman. But the operation was irreversible and extremely risky. No experiments had been done on living people. His wife is worried about this, but Einar is determined. At the train station, Einar and his wife kissed each other goodbye. The next time they saw each other, he would no longer be her husband. Fortunately, the first operation was a success, despite the pain and sweating. But she smiled with satisfaction. After a period of recuperation, his wife took Lily back to Denmark. The relationship between the two was not distant, although they slept with a thin white veil between them. But they were still the most important people in each other's hearts. Lily also became a perfume saleswoman. The look on her face was so happy when she was selling products to customers. However, after a while, the wife couldn't get over Einar. When she saw Lily holding a man's hand, she felt very uncomfortable. Lily was also very helpless. She wanted to live a normal woman's life. So she decided to go back to London immediately for a second operation. The second operation was more risky. Although her wife was against it, Lily was determined to go through with it. She had no choice but to accompany her to the hospital. Lily looked at the woman in front of her. She knew how much she loved her. She also understood how sorry she was to her wife. Lily untied the silk scarf around her neck, which had accompanied her from man to woman. She wanted to give it to her wife, but her wife said it looked better on Lily after the successful surgery. The two people who should have grown old together were arranged by fate. Lily felt both happy and sad. The next day, the operation went on as planned. But after the surgery, the doctor told his wife that Lily's condition was not good. The wife immediately rushed into the ward. At this time, Lily's body was already extremely weak, but she still managed to smile. Lily said to her wife, "I am my whole self now." Lily had a dream that she was a baby and her mother called her Lily. After saying this, Lily closed her eyes with a smile on her face. Although her life was short, she had lived the life she had imagined. The wife stroked Lily's cheek, and she perfectly illustrated what love means. Love is understanding, love is tolerance. Love is to do what the person you love wants to do, despite all resistance. The name of this movie is The Danish Girl. The story is based on a true story from the 1920s. What do you think about what happened to Lily? Feel free to comment.